It takes a long time to realize how truly miserable you are, and even longer to see that it doesn't have to be that way. Only after you give up everything can you begin to find a way to be happy.
Pessimism, cynicism, melancholy. These are just a few of the terms that have been used to describe the themes of Netflix's animated dramedy, BoJack Horseman. There is no denying that these concepts are apparent throughout the series as the show follows the ups and downs of its main character. BoJack is a complicated individual. He struggles with bouts of depression, narcissism, and addiction, just to name a few. These issues are aggravated further by his bleak outlook, which can be described as pessimistic or cynical. Through this framework, the show asks viewers, does a person who does bad things deserve to be happy? While this all sounds very dark, an argument could be made that the driving factor behind BoJack Horseman is actually optimism. Some of the darkest moments of the series are juxtaposed with optimistic tones. Likewise, negative characters are often complemented with more positive characters. It's easy to miss because the negative aspects of the show are more pronounced. However, optimism is still there, just buried under layers upon layers of conflict. BoJack Horseman gives viewers familiar notes of dark humor similar to other animated comedies, but what sets the show apart is its pragmatic approach to optimism. More specifically, the show does a great job of portraying existentialism and absurdism as optimistic responses to nihilism. This can be best understood by examining BoJack's relationships with his optimistic counterparts, and is further supported by the events in the final season. While pessimism assertively takes center stage to provide the show's primary conflict, optimism quietly provides the momentum to propel the show forward.
Letting you stay with me was the best thing I ever did on purpose. And I don't think I ever told you that, but I should have. Because you're my best friend, Todd.
BoJack is complemented by a range of characters who all want to see him improve, but none are better at living out their own advice than Todd Chavez. At the start of the show, Todd is an upbeat slacker who wound up crashing on BoJack's couch one day and never left. Like many people in their 20s, he struggles to find meaning or direction. Throughout the series, Todd gains enough confidence to pursue his ideas, all while content with the consequences of each adventure. Todd certainly has struggles, but at the end of it all, he is an optimist and a foil to BoJack's pessimism. In a way, this places him at the heart of the show. While BoJack wrestles with his mistakes, Todd takes them in stride. BoJack constantly craves validation, Todd doesn't feel the need to seek approval. BoJack desires success, while Todd is content with where he lands as long as he is happy with himself.
I'll get the muffins, and they're on me. I just found out I got $80 in the bank. I'm helping! Hooray!
On the surface, it appears that Todd exists for comic relief. He is the stereotypical optimist who has faith that everything will work out. Todd isn't even fazed when he accidentally tips a waitress $8 million. It would be easy to chalk this up to naivety, and certainly Todd has earned such a reputation with his antics, but by the end of the series, Todd determines that he is capable of defining his own meaning in life.
Why can't you see I'm living a good life? I have friends, I have a job.
You sleep on the couch and you play with puppets all day.
I'm happy, Jorge.
Another character with an enduring positive outlook is BoJack's rival, Mr. Peanut Butter. Where Todd is optimistic despite his circumstances, it at first appears that Mr. Peanut Butter is optimistic because of his circumstances. He is initially presented as a famous, wealthy, energetic, easily distracted people-pleaser. For the first few seasons, it was difficult to find any flaws, but his relationship with Diane and later Pickles proved that he is imperfect. In his own way, he struggles with the same issues as BoJack, particularly with veiled narcissism and the inability to experience any real growth, even when a character like Diane spells out the problem and solution for him. He ultimately concludes that life is meaningless. This may not sound like optimism, but the way Mr. Peanut Butter responds to the existential dread makes all the difference. Mr. Peanut Butter's brand of optimism differs from Todd's in that he does not assign meaning to anything. By rejecting meaning, Mr. Peanut Butter accepts the absurdity of searching for meaning in a meaningless world. This realization allows him to live freely and find joy in his pursuits instead of worrying about what it all means in the end. Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter are similar in that they justify their optimism in rather unique ways, especially considering their naive and goofy exteriors.
I realized something today when my brother called from the hospital, and I think it's going to make you feel a lot better.
What? What is it?
None of this matters. Okay, I'll see you later, buddy.
Existential anxiety is something that affects nearly every main character in BoJack Horseman. Princess Carolyn practices avoidance by staying busy. Diane searches for meaning through moral action. But no one in the show struggles to cope with their anxieties quite like BoJack. That being said, it is probably the most realistic portrayal of personal growth on television, animated or otherwise. BoJack Horseman doesn't give viewers a 5-minute montage of recovery. Instead, viewers are treated to every wobbly, unsure footfall of the main character as he discovers that improvement takes hard work. Unlike his peers, BoJack is unable to cope with his nihilistic outlook in a healthy way. He refuses to define meaning in his life, but also refuses to accept that life is meaningless. He is stuck in the middle and lives in a constant state of existential angst. It's his inability to choose that makes BoJack feel so real compared to his optimistic counterparts.
Yeah, it's not my fault, it's society. Everything is because of society.
Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter are idealistic characters who almost perfectly personify the two responses to nihilism, existentialism and absurdism. On the other hand, BoJack personifies in a very real way just how difficult it is to come to either of those conclusions. At first, it may be difficult to see exactly how existentialism translates to optimism. Existentialism in film or television is usually portrayed in the form of a crisis, so the term is often incorrectly conflated with pessimism or cynicism. In order to reveal the underlying optimism, we must first understand how existentialism, nihilism, and absurdism are all related. It all starts with nihilism, or existential nihilism to be more specific. This is the view that life has no intrinsic meaning, purpose, or value. While Friedrich Nietzsche popularized nihilism, he also suggested that it is not the end goal, but a transitional stage in understanding human existence. When concerning existential dread, or what philosopher Søren Kierkegaard referred to as angst, it is important to note that while existentialism and nihilism are closely related terms, they are in fact two distinct outlooks. Existentialism is a response to nihilism. The existential school of philosophy holds the view that in a meaningless world, it is up to the individual to assign meaning to life. An existentialist would then make it a priority to live authentically according to their discovered values. Then there is absurdism, a view made popular by Albert Camus, which suggests to embrace the absurdity of searching for meaning in a meaningless world. An absurdist finds the pursuit of meaning to be meaningful in itself. They make the choice to live in an act of defiance against the absurd, while at the same time being at peace with futility. Camus explored this topic in his essay The Myth of Sisyphus, in which he compared the everyday futility of existence to the toils of Sisyphus. The gods punish Sisyphus by having him spend eternity pushing a stone up a mountain, only to have it roll back down where he has to start over. According to Camus, when Sisyphus realizes the futile nature of his endless task, he is then free to accept and be content with his circumstance. He adds that one must imagine Sisyphus to be happy. Existentialism and absurdism are both optimistic views in the sense that they both bring about meaning where there previously was none. BoJack Horseman wrestles with some heavy topics, but this does not mean the show itself is intended to be pessimistic. In fact, the show treads into this territory because these subjects are things often encountered on the path to recovery, a journey which in itself is optimistic.
It gets easier.
Huh?
Every day it gets a little easier.
Yeah?
But you gotta do it every day. That's the hard part. But it does get easier.
This sense of underlying optimism is emphasized often throughout the show when BoJack is at an impasse. Sometimes it's in the form of random inspiration, advice from a friend, or a genuinely happy moment.
But it's easy now, in jail. I don't have to make any choices for myself. I worry about what's gonna happen when I get out. What if I relapse again?
Then you'll get sober again.
Then there are moments where BoJack's improvement is reflected in his actions and how he treats others. Although his behavior throughout the series is erratic and inconsistent, BoJack tries to do good, even if bad prevails more often than it should.
You keep thinking under all that nothing, there's gotta be something, but all you find is nothing.
Sure, but you flip over this pizza box, and look, A couch.
These moments are crucial not only for the progression of the story and to show BoJack's growth, but also for the viewers to have hope that everything will turn out okay in the end. So that's where the final season comes into play. BoJack Horseman could have ended on a very dark note, and it nearly did with the penultimate episode, The View from Halfway Down. However, show creator Raphael Bob-Waksberg felt that for the story to have a proper ending, BoJack would have to be alive. This could be determined as an optimistic decision, as it directly defies what could have been a cynical take on BoJack's story. In an interview with Vulture, Bob-Waksberg stated that he believes BoJack Horseman is an optimistic show. At the same time, he addresses the cynicism by explaining that while the series paints a clear picture of hardship, that does not mean that it is without hope. He even goes so far as to mention Sisyphus pushing the stone up the mountain. Balancing optimism with hardship is greatly exemplified in the final episode of the series by showing how BoJack and his relationships with other characters have changed over time. Todd doesn't need BoJack like he used to. Mr. Peanut Butter is there for him out of cheerful obligation. Princess Carolyn doesn't want to be his agent, and Diane has accepted the inevitable end of their unhealthy friendship. These are bittersweet moments because nobody outright despises BoJack. In fact, they even offer him advice and support, but they and even BoJack to an extent have all realized that it's time to move on. They have accepted the futility of their situation and are content with letting things be. This freedom has allowed each of the characters to pursue the various things in life that provide them with meaning. Of course, BoJack is still playing catch-up, but there is a sense that a fresh start is on the horizon, and maybe that's what he needs. This is particularly evident in a few key moments during Princess Carolyn's wedding. For instance, BoJack has a conversation with Todd about the goals he has set for himself and how he's afraid that he'll mess up again when he's out of prison. Despite their issues in the past, Todd's response is supportive.
You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. You turn yourself around. That's what it's all about.
BoJack also has a conversation with Princess Carolyn where he describes an imagined scenario where he would convince Princess Carolyn to go through with the wedding as a symbol of how he has matured enough to let her go. Princess Carolyn acknowledges that the scenario panders more to BoJack's needs rather than her own, but the sentiment is there. Additionally, there is a running joke throughout the series about BoJack hating honeydew, but at the wedding he cautiously tries a piece and surprisingly likes it. The fact that BoJack is trying something outside of his comfort zone is a subtle indicator of change. Then of course, there is what may very well be BoJack's final conversation with Diane. The conversation ranges from angry to nostalgic, melancholic, and even happy at moments. After implying that this could be the last time they talk, BoJack is at first nervous, but he tells Diane a comical story about prison movie night where he inadvertently made a bad situation worse. This story is BoJack acknowledging that he often gets in his own way. Instead of pleading with Diane and risking the possibility of making a bad situation worse, he decides to sit in uncomfortable silence with her and look at the stars. This is a selfless decision on BoJack's part because this situation is really only bad for him. After all, Diane is happy and content with where she is at in life. His decision mirrors his previous conversation with Princess Carolyn, where he wanted to prove he has grown up by letting her go. With Diane, however, he actually has the opportunity to let her go, and he does. This is the optimistic ending for BoJack. Setting goals, trying uncomfortable things, and accepting what he cannot control. Through this lens, BoJack Horseman shows viewers that a situation does not have to be explicitly happy in order for it to be optimistic. At its heart, BoJack Horseman is a show about searching for happiness. However, Raphael Bob-Waksberg is keenly aware that happiness is not so easily defined. So in a show that grapples with mental health, addiction, and philosophy, it's no surprise that BoJack Horseman leaves viewers questioning whether they should be happy or sad. The answer might actually be neither. At the end of the series, it's still unclear where BoJack lands, but he gets out of his comfort zone and finally accepts circumstances outside of his control. This is a key part of being free from existential anxiety. From there, BoJack can choose to assign meaning in his life or choose to live in spite of meaning. Either way, it's a huge step forward. Optimism is not always blatantly happy. Sometimes optimism is owning up to mistakes, changing a bad behavior, or being content with losing a friend. Sometimes optimism is just being at peace. Let the music play, the scene fade, and the credits roll. Life goes on. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.